The courtroom's air was thick and still, the kind that makes every breath feel borrowed. Emily Carter, in her red dress, sat frozen beneath the weight of 100 eyes. Beside her, Rex, the police dog, shifted, ears pricked, muscles tense. For months, she hadn't spoken a word, her silence stronger than any scream. But today, something changed. The German shepherd rose, pressing against her arm, his amber eyes fixed on hers, as if reminding her of a promise. Then, in a trembling voice that broke the hush like glass, Emily whispered her first words since the crime. And what she said would turn the trial, the city, and every heart inside that courtroom upside down. We invite you to support us by subscribing to the channel. Austin, Texas, was a city that baked under its own beauty. The sun at midday hit the glass towers and ricocheted onto the pavement, turning every street into a shimmering river of heat. The cicadas screamed from the oak trees lining Congress Avenue, their chorus relentless, their rhythm the pulse of a southern summer. Cars rolled by with their air conditioners roaring, and people moved as if every step cost them a drop of sanity. Amid this haze of asphalt and glare, a figure in red stepped out of the Travis County Witness Protection Office. Emily Carter paused at the top of the steps. The heat curled her chestnut hair at the ends, making it cling to her neck. She was 28, tall but not intimidating, her frame slender, fragile almost, as though a strong wind might fold her in two. Yet something in her posture, chin slightly lifted, shoulders squared, hinted at the steel beneath the surface. Her red dress, the one she always wore to hearings, fluttered faintly in the dry breeze. It wasn't just clothing, it was armor, a promise to herself that she would not fade into fear. The door behind her opened, and a broad shadow fell across the steps. Rex, a 6-year-old German shepherd, padded forward with silent discipline. His coat was the color of smoke and gold, every muscle honed from years of canine service. His amber eyes moved with the precision of a soldier and the gentleness of an old soul. He was large, too large for the delicate leash that connected him to Emily, but his gait was calm, every step measured. Rex had seen things no animal should have seen. Crime scenes littered with blood, raids that ended with silence. But this, guarding a trembling witness, was a different kind of duty. A few steps away stood Officer Sam Walker, Rex's handler and Emily's temporary escort. Sam was in his late 30s, tall and broad-shouldered, the kind of man who carried himself like he was always aware of exits. His dark hair was trimmed short, his jaw square beneath a thin layer of stubble, and a faint scar ran down the left side of his chin, an old memory from a night he rarely spoke about. Those who knew him called him the Quiet Compass. He rarely smiled, but when he did, it was real, and it reached his eyes. War had carved discipline into his bones, but the world after had taught him silence was sometimes the kindest weapon. He adjusted his aviator sunglasses and scanned the street. "You okay to walk a bit, Emily?" His voice was deep, steady, practiced calm for nervous witnesses. Emily nodded. "I think so." Her voice came out softer than she intended. They moved together down the steps, Rex trotting between them. The pavement shimmered like molten glass, and Emily shielded her eyes with a red umbrella she carried everywhere. It wasn't raining, but it gave her something to hold, a small rebellion against helplessness. "Hotter than sin out here," Sam muttered. "Rex hates the heat more than I do." As if to prove the point, Rex shifted under the umbrella, trying to fit his massive body into the narrow patch of shade. Emily laughed, a sound small and cracked from disuse but real. "You're not built for Texas, are you?" she said softly to Rex. The dog tilted his head, his tongue lolling out, and for a moment, the world felt less cruel. They walked past a newsstand displaying headlines about the break-in that had shaken the city last May, the one Emily had survived. She avoided the papers. She didn't need to read the words to remember them. The knife's gleam in the moonlight. The crash of glass. Her father's voice shouting once, then never again. And through it all, the flash of a red baseball cap disappearing into the night. She had seen the killer's face, just enough to remember the eyes. But fear had locked her voice inside her chest ever since. Sam watched her carefully. "You don't have to talk about it," he said, reading the shadow that passed across her face. "I know," she murmured, tightening her grip on the umbrella. "But it's always there, like the heat. You think it fades, but it just hides until you stop paying attention." They reached the parking lot beside a row of shimmering vehicles. Sam opened the passenger door of the police SUV. Rex circled once before jumping in, his tail thumping against the seat. Emily stood still, squinting at the skyline, her reflection melting in the window glass. "Emily," Sam said quietly, "you did good today. Even coming here. Most people would have run halfway across the country." She smiled faintly. "Maybe I just ran in circles." He was about to respond when Rex gave a low, brief growl, a sound that vibrated through the metal of the SUV. His gaze locked on the windshield. Emily frowned and stepped closer. The glass shimmered under the sunlight, 1,000 reflections dancing across it. Then she saw it. A single folded note stuck beneath the wiper, edges curling from the heat. Sweat trickled down her temple as she reached out with trembling fingers. Sam's voice sharpened. "Don't touch it. I'll get gloves." But she already had. The paper was warm against her skin. The ink smudged slightly from the sun. She unfolded it, her heart thudding. The message was short, written in hurried strokes. "Don't open your mouth. Zilker Park, tonight." Rex barked once, sharp, alert, startling her into dropping the note. It fluttered onto the pavement, a pale scrap of dread against the asphalt. Sam's jaw tightened. He scanned the rooftops, the parking lot, the empty windows of nearby buildings. The hum of traffic was suddenly too loud, too constant, like static before a storm. Emily stared at the note, the words echoing louder than the heat. "They know where I am," she whispered. Sam stepped closer, his tone controlled but firm. "Then we don't run. We get ready." Rex pressed his head against Emily's hand, steady and solid. She felt his heartbeat through the fur, a rhythm of reassurance amid the chaos. Above them, a lone cloud drifted across the blazing sun, but it brought no relief, only a flicker of shadow, quick and uncertain, before the light returned. The cicadas screamed louder, and somewhere in Austin, a man with a red cap watched from the other side of the street. By mid-afternoon, the heat had thickened into something almost physical, a shimmering curtain that bent the horizon and dulled the edges of sound. Congress Avenue had emptied out, except for the hum of cicadas and the distant clatter of an air conditioning unit laboring against defeat. In the police station's operations room, Officer Sam Walker stood before a map of Austin pinned with red markers, each one representing a lead in Emily Carter's case. The fluorescent light overhead buzzed softly, too white, too sharp, slicing through his exhaustion. Sam's shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms lined with old scars, faint reminders of a service tour in Afghanistan, where heat had also felt like punishment. His focus was clinical, precise. He wasn't just chasing a suspect anymore. He was guarding something fragile, something he hadn't realized mattered this much until Rex started following Emily around like a shadow with purpose. Emily sat nearby, her red dress now slightly wrinkled, a paper cup of water sweating in her hand. There was a new stillness about her, something bracing between fear and defiance. Across the table, Detective Laura Price entered, carrying a folder tucked under her arm. Laura was in her 40s, lean and tall, her posture military straight. Her dark blonde hair was pulled into a low bun that showed off a narrow, intelligent face and eyes like frosted glass, cold but never cruel. She had a reputation in the department for being ruthless with liars and protective with victims. Her voice, when she spoke, had a faint rasp, the ghost of an old smoking habit she swore she'd quit years ago. She dropped the folder on the table. "We pulled the footage from the Barton Creek parking lot this morning. You were right, Sam. Someone was following her." Emily looked up sharply. "The man with the red cap?" Laura nodded. "Same build, same gait. He's careful, but the security camera from the farmer's market caught his reflection in a truck mirror. He wasn't there to shop." Sam crossed his arms. "Any plate numbers from the truck?" "Partial," Laura said. "And this." She pulled out a plastic evidence bag containing a piece of ragged cloth, reddish fibers that had once been part of a hat brim. "Found near a trash bin close to the alley. Rex's nose led us there." At the mention of his name, Rex lifted his head from his resting place at Emily's feet. His black and tan coat shimmered in the sterile light, and his amber eyes flicked between the three humans as if he understood every word. His tail thumped once against the floor, quiet but deliberate. Emily leaned down to stroke his head. "Good boy," she whispered, her tone half gratitude, half confession. Laura smiled faintly. "He's got better instincts than half the force." Sam smirked. "Better manners, too." The moment of levity dissolved as Laura placed another photo on the table, a still frame of the man in the red cap, face half hidden, posture tense, walking just 3 paces behind Emily at the market. His arm was extended slightly, as though reaching for something, or someone. Emily stared at the image, her pulse tightening. "That's him," she breathed. "I saw him outside my apartment, months ago." Laura's pen stopped mid-note. "And you didn't report it?" Emily's eyes lowered. "I thought it was my imagination. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe it." Sam stepped in, his voice gentle but firm. "We believe you now, and we're not letting this bastard near you again." By evening, the investigation took them to Barton Creek Farmers Market, now closing down for the day. The air smelled of sun-warmed fruit and spilled lemonade. Vendors packed up their stalls while flies circled lazily above melting ice. Emily, trying to blend in, wore a wide straw hat over her loose hair, the red dress catching the dying sunlight like flame. Rex walked beside her, perfectly still and composed, ignoring the occasional coo of strangers. A few older women at a honey stand stopped to fuss over him, calling him the most handsome boy in Texas. Emily smiled softly, for the first time that day. Rex accepted a small biscuit from one of them but didn't chew until Emily nodded permission. Sam, keeping his distance, scanned the parking lot. He caught movement near the far end. A man in a gray hoodie lingering too long near a trash can. His body language was wrong, too casual to be casual. Sam signaled to Rex with a subtle flick of his wrist. The dog's ears pricked up, nose tilting toward the scent of metal and cleaning solvent. "Got something?" Sam murmured. Rex barked once. Short. Sharp. Sam moved closer, hand near his holster. The trash bag beside the can reeked faintly of polish and oil, a sterile, metallic scent. He lifted the lid, revealing a small cloth stained with residue of metal cleaner. "Same smell from the murder weapon," he muttered. Laura, who had just arrived at the scene, leaned over his shoulder. "He's cleaning tools again. That's our guy." Before Sam could respond, Emily's phone buzzed in her purse. She fumbled it out, expecting Sam's number, but the screen showed unknown caller. Her throat went dry. She answered anyway. The voice on the other end was male, smooth and calm, touched by a southern drawl. "You shouldn't have come here, Miss Carter. It's too hot for goodbyes." Her heart slammed in her chest. "Who is this?" A faint chuckle. "Come to Zilker, alone. You owe me that much." The line went dead. She turned to Sam, eyes wide. It was him. The crowd's hum seemed to vanish, replaced by the low thud of her heartbeat. Sam's expression hardened, jaw flexing beneath his stubble. "Then we'll be ready. He wants a meeting? We'll give him one." Night fell heavy and red over Austin as they reached Zilker Park. The grass shimmered faintly in the moonlight, brittle underfoot from weeks without rain. Emily tightened her grip on Rex's leash, every instinct screaming to turn back. The dog's ears twitched. Something moved in the dark ahead. Sam's voice was low. "Stay behind me." A breeze carried the smell of burnt oil and cut grass. Then, out of the shadows, something rolled toward them, softly, lazily, until it stopped by Emily's feet. A baseball cap. Red. Dusty. Torn. But there was no one there. Rex growled deep in his chest, fur bristling. Somewhere in the blackness beyond the trees, a laugh drifted on the heat. The night wind from the Colorado River was thick with dust and the faint sweetness of gasoline. It carried the kind of heat that never truly left, clinging to the skin like regret. The river shimmered under a bruised moon, its surface broken by the occasional ripple of wind. In the silence between cicada calls, the faint sound of boots on gravel echoed along the embankment. Sam Walker led the way, flashlight in hand, while Rex strained gently at the leash, nose low, tail stiff, every muscle tuned to the rhythm of scent and danger. Emily followed close behind, her red dress now darkened with dirt, her face pale beneath the shifting light. Fear had become something physical for her, something that tightened around her lungs, but no longer stopped her feet. She had learned to walk with it, breathe with it, as if courage were nothing more than controlled trembling. Detective Laura Price trailed slightly behind them, one hand on her holstered weapon. Her bun had loosened in the humidity, and thin strands of hair clung to her temple. The flashlight she carried trembled slightly as she scanned the overgrown bank. "He's been here," she muttered. "You can almost smell it. The metallic tang, same as the weapon." Sam crouched beside Rex, brushing a hand over the German shepherd's flank. The dog's fur was damp with sweat and river mist. His nostrils flared as he drew in the air, then suddenly tugged toward a path that veered inland, away from the water. "Easy, boy," Sam whispered. Rex ignored him, ears pricked, tail rising. He barked once, a short, clipped signal that made every human spine straighten. The team followed his lead, their flashlights cutting narrow tunnels through the dark. The trail led to a dirt road that disappeared into a cluster of abandoned storage garages. Metal structures with rusted doors and graffiti faded by years of sun. The largest one stood slightly ajar, as if waiting. A thin, acrid smell drifted out, part gasoline, part bleach, part something human, sweat, oil, and the ghost of blood. Sam exchanged a glance with Laura. "You smell that?" Laura nodded grimly. "He's cleaning up again. Same scent as before. Metal and cheap soap." Emily shivered. "He was here." From behind, a soft voice spoke. Officer Daniel Ruiz, a young patrolman newly assigned to their unit. Daniel was 25, short but strong, with olive skin and dark, expressive eyes that betrayed both nerves and eagerness. His uniform looked freshly pressed, his badge gleaming too brightly for a night shift. He had joined the force after his older brother, also an officer, had been killed in a hit-and-run that was never solved. Since then, Daniel had been determined to prove himself, to protect others where he once failed his own. He moved closer to the door, his flashlight trembling slightly. "Should I check inside, sir?" Sam shook his head. "Not yet. Let Rex lead." Rex stepped forward, muscles rippling under his tassa coat. He sniffed the air, ears twitching. Then, with a sudden burst of purpose, he lunged toward the open garage. Sam followed, sweeping the beam of light over the concrete floor. There, beneath a pile of discarded rags, lay a cell phone, its screen cracked but glowing faintly. Sam crouched, pulling on gloves before picking it up. Messages flickered across the display. "Trade witness for evidence." A grainy image followed, an unlit garage the same as this one, and a shadowed figure beside a car with the license plate smeared by oil. Laura exhaled sharply. "That's him. He's taunting us." Emily stepped closer, her breath quickening. "That's my father's car," she whispered. "But it was destroyed months ago." Sam's brow furrowed. "Then he's using the image to mess with you. Psychological warfare." Rex circled the floor again, nose to the ground. He stopped near a metallic streak smeared across the concrete, an oily shimmer of metal polish, the same brand identified in the lab report. Sam leaned closer, shining the flashlight. "That's our link," he said, "the same compound used to clean the knife." Before Laura could reply, a faint sound broke the silence, the scrape of a shoe against gravel. Everyone froze. Rex growled low, teeth bared, body rigid. Sam signaled for lights out. The beam from his flashlight vanished, leaving them in darkness except for the ghostly moonlight seeping through a hole in the roof. They waited, listening. Then it came again. A slow, deliberate step, closer this time. The air shifted with the scent of sweat, gasoline, and something acrid, something unmistakably human. Emily's heart pounded. She turned toward the door and caught a flash of motion. A man's silhouette slipped between the shadows, tall and wiry, his face obscured beneath the brim of a cap. But the moonlight caught his left wrist, revealing a tattoo, a small cuckoo bird inked in black and gray. Emily gasped. "That's him, the cuckoo tattoo!" The figure vanished before anyone could react. Sam drew his gun. "He's trying to lure us deeper." Laura started toward the door, But the moment her boot crossed the threshold, a loud metallic slam echoed through the garage. The door dropped shut behind them with a violent clang, locking tight. "Sam!" Emily shouted. He ran to the door, slamming his shoulder against it, but it didn't budge. A second later, the faint hiss of gas began to fill the air. The smell was sharp, chemical, suffocating. Daniel coughed, covering his mouth. "It's fuel. He's flooding the place." Sam grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Walker. We're locked in a garage near the river. Possible trap. Need immediate backup." The radio crackled, then went dead. Laura's phone displayed the same. No signal. He jammed it. Rex barked once, then twice, moving toward a small gap in the rear wall where the metal had corroded. Sam followed his lead, crouching low. "Good boy. You found us a way out." The gas grew thicker. The sound of a lighter flicking came from outside. Just one click, distant but unmistakable. "Move!" Sam shouted. "Now!" Rex lunged first, claws scraping metal, forcing himself through the narrow opening. Emily followed, her dress snagging on a jagged edge. Sam pulled her free just as the air behind them ignited in a dull roar. A burst of flame licked out through the gap, searing the night air. They stumbled out onto the dirt, coughing, eyes burning, the orange glow behind them lighting the trees like false dawn. When the smoke cleared, the man was gone, only the echo of his footsteps fading toward the river. Rex stood at the edge of the embankment, fur singed slightly, chest heaving. He growled low, staring into the darkness as if memorizing the scent that had tried to kill them. The heat of the fire met the cool wind from the Colorado, twisting together in a cruel dance. And somewhere beyond the black water, someone whistled 3 sharp notes, the same pattern Emily had heard the night her world ended. Morning light filtered through the high-arched windows of the Travis County Courthouse, spilling across the polished wooden floor like liquid amber. The air inside was cool but tense, thick with the scent of paper, cologne, and faint dust from the ceiling vents. Every whisper, every cough seemed amplified against the marble walls. The crowd had come early, filling the benches in anticipation. Reporters hunched with notepads, cameras ready. They weren't here for justice. They were here for spectacle. At the center of that spectacle sat Emily Carter, her red dress a streak of defiance in the sea of neutral tones. The color caught the light like fire, but her face was pale, almost translucent beneath the strain. She sat quietly beside Rex, whose steady breathing provided a rhythm against her racing heart. The German shepherd's coat gleamed under the courtroom lights, every muscle taut yet calm, as though he understood the gravity of what was to come. Beside the prosecution table stood Grace Miller, the district attorney assigned to the case. Grace was a woman in her mid-40s, with a commanding presence that didn't come from volume but from precision. Her short auburn hair was streaked with silver, pulled into a neat bob that framed a face both sharp and kind. Years of experience had carved fine lines at the corners of her mouth, lines earned from holding her ground in rooms full of men who doubted her. She wore a navy suit and a small silver pin shaped like a scale of justice. People said she never lost her temper. They were wrong. She just knew how to weaponize calm. Across the aisle, the defense attorney adjusted his tie. Leonard Crane was in his early 50s, tall, angular, with a trimmed salt and pepper beard that lent him an air of credibility he didn't deserve. His blue eyes were icy, almost translucent, and his voice smooth, honed from years of manipulating truth into suggestion. He'd once been a prosecutor himself before a scandal. A case lost because of suppressed evidence had forced him to switch sides. Since then, He had built a reputation for turning hopeless defenses into Pyrrhic victories. At the judge's bench sat Judge Harold Benton, a man of near-retirement age, heavy-set with a silver mustache that looked as though it had once been a point of pride. His patience was legendary, but so was his aversion to theatrics. The courtroom was his cathedral, and decorum was scripture. The bailiff called the court to order, and the murmur of the crowd dissolved into silence. Grace rose first, her posture straight, her voice steady. "Your Honor, the prosecution calls Emily Carter to the stand." Emily stood, every step toward the witness chair echoing louder than it should have. Her hand trembled slightly as she took the oath. Rex padded beside her and settled at her feet, his head resting against her knee. Judge Benton glanced down. "Is the animal necessary, Ms. Miller?" Grace's tone was even. "Rex is a certified police K-9, Your Honor. The witness has been under his protection during the investigation. He helps her manage trauma responses." The judge studied the dog for a long moment. Rex met his gaze unflinchingly. "Very well. Proceed." Grace stepped forward. "Emily, can you tell the court what you remember from the night of May 17th? Emily's lips parted, but her voice caught. The courtroom's stillness pressed against her chest. She lowered her eyes, tracing a beam of sunlight cutting across the floor. Then Rex nudged her leg, soft but firm, grounding her. She drew a breath. "I heard glass shatter first," she said quietly. "Then footsteps. He came through the kitchen door. I saw the knife. It was polished, like it had just been cleaned. He wore a red cap, I remember. I remember a tattoo right here." She lifted her hand to the inside of her left wrist. "A bird. A cuckoo." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Grace nodded. "And what did he say to you?" Emily's voice faltered, then strengthened. "He whistled, 3 short notes. Then he said, 'You saw too much.'" The defense rose immediately. "Objection. Speculation. The witness is clearly traumatized. Her recollection may be influenced by media coverage." Judge Benton rapped his gavel once. "Overruled. Let her continue." Grace's tone softened. "Emily, what else do you remember?" Her eyes unfocused, fixed on a point in memory. "The smell," she whispered. "Metal mixed with sweat. And cheap soap. He moved like someone who'd done this before." Gasps scattered among the benches. The bailiff gave a warning glance toward the audience. Leonard Crane stood, buttoning his jacket. "Permission to cross-examine." The judge nodded. Crane approached, slow and deliberate, like a predator gauging distance. "Miss Carter, you've described details tonight that weren't in your original statement. Isn't it true that trauma can distort memory? That heat, fear, even suggestion can trick the mind?" Emily's knuckles whitened against the wooden armrest. "I know what I saw." He leaned closer, voice smooth as silk. "Do you? Or do you want to remember something that makes sense? You said the man whistled 3 notes. But how can you be sure that wasn't your imagination?" Rex's ears twitched, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest. Grace rose. "Objection, badgering the witness." "Withdrawn," Crane said with a faint smirk. He turned, addressing the jury now. "Ladies and gentlemen, memory is a fragile thing. On a summer night, in a house full of panic, even a sound can become a phantom." The lights flickered once, then again. The hum of the air conditioner sputtered. Judge Benton frowned. Is maintenance aware? Before he could finish, the fire alarm blared, shrill, chaotic. People jumped to their feet, panic rippling like electricity. The bailiff shouted for order, but the sound of tires, screeching outside, drowned him out. Grace moved toward Emily, ushering her behind the witness stand. Sam burst through the side door moments later, gun drawn, uniform still streaked with soot from the previous night's explosion. "Get her down!" he barked. The crowd scattered. In the confusion, a side door at the back of the courtroom creaked open. Light poured in, stark and blinding against the smoke from the alarm. Emily turned and froze. A man stood silhouetted in the doorway. Tall, lean. A red cap pulled low over his brow. His eyes, shadowed but unmistakably real, swept across the room until they found her. Rex's growl deepened, a sound that vibrated through the floorboards. Then the man's hand moved inside his jacket. Grace screamed, "Down!" The courtroom erupted. Chaos exploded through the courtroom before anyone could scream. The man in the red cap lunged forward, arm half raised, but Rex was already airborne. The German Shepherd hit him like a thunderbolt. Muscle and precision fused into a single motion. The man went down hard, the cap spinning away across the polished floor. A canister rolled from his grip, hissing faintly. Spray paint, not a weapon, but enough to flood the air with panic and blur the cameras. Court officers rushed forward as the shriek of the alarm blended with shouts and the sound of chairs scraping. Sam Walker shoved through the crowd, pulling Emily behind the barrier while Laura Price drew her gun. "Freeze!" she shouted. The man's hands rose shakily, his wrist twisting to reveal the black cuckoo tattoo glinting beneath courtroom light. Rex stood over him, teeth bared but controlled, amber eyes locked. The bailiffs pinned the suspect down while Sam grabbed the canister. "Paint." He wanted to blind the cameras, he muttered. The smell of solvent stung the air. Grace Miller approached, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, and crouched beside the subdued man. "Name?" she demanded. The suspect spat on the floor, his jaw tight. "Call me whatever you want, lady." Laura knelt beside him, her expression ice. "We'll call you a felon soon enough." She nodded to the officers. "Get him out." As they hauled him up, his hat fell again, revealing a face that was gaunt, angular, and unshaven, the cheekbones sharp from months of running. His eyes were pale gray, cold and darting. "You think you know the story?" he hissed at Emily. "You don't even know why it started." Emily stood frozen, her breath uneven. Rex stayed pressed against her leg, a living wall of calm between her and the world. Within minutes, the building was secured. Judge Benton returned to the bench, face stern but voice steady. "Order will be restored. The court will reconvene once the scene is cleared." Later that evening, in the sterile light of the interrogation room, the man sat in cuffs opposite Laura and Sam. The room was small, its walls painted gray and bare except for a security camera blinking in the corner. He slouched in the metal chair, arms slack but eyes restless. Laura laid a folder on the table and opened it with precision. Inside were photographs, the garage, the metal polish stains, the cell phone messages. "You left enough behind to tell your story twice," she said. The man smirked, his teeth uneven. "You people love stories. Go ahead, finish it for me." Sam leaned forward, forearms on the table. "We already did. Your prints match the ones on the knife handle from the break-in, and that polish on your pants. Same brand from the evidence lab. You're done." The man's mask cracked for a moment, and something bitter passed through his eyes. Fear, or maybe regret. You think this was about killing? It was about getting something back. They stole from me first. Laura's tone stayed calm. The metal shipments. You were part of the crew stealing from the refinery. Your partners turned on you, didn't they? He laughed, short and sharp. One of them did. Your witness's father. Sam's jaw tightened. You killed him. The man looked up, smirk gone, voice flat. I didn't have to. He was already dead inside. I just finished the conversation. The silence that followed was thick and ugly. Then Laura stood. You'll have plenty of time to write the rest of your confession. She signaled to the guard, who dragged the man out. Outside, the rain had started, a faint drizzle softening the edges of the city. The storm broke the long drought of heat, cooling the sidewalks and washing away the grit from the day. Emily stood on the courthouse steps, watching as the patrol car carrying the suspect disappeared down the road, its red and blue lights fading into the distance. Grace joined her, carrying her coat over one arm. Her hair was damp at the edges, her voice gentle now. You did it, Emily. You stayed. Emily's lips parted in a tired smile. I think Rex did most of it. Grace's eyes softened. Sometimes the truth walks on four legs. Sam stepped out next, his uniform wet at the shoulders, his hair flattened by the rain. He gave Rex a playful scratch behind the ears. You hear that, partner? You're famous now. Rex licked his hand once, tail sweeping the wet pavement. Sam grimaced. Still too slobbery. They all laughed quietly, the tension breaking like a long-held breath. In the days that followed, the city moved on, but the story lingered. The newspapers called it the trial of the red cap. For Emily, it was the end of a long shadow. She stood taller now, still wearing red, but no longer as armor, only as memory. She began volunteering with the local victim support center, helping others find their voices again. Sometimes, when new witnesses trembled, she'd bring Rex along. The German Shepherd had become more than a protector. He was therapy, courage, and calm in one heartbeat. Officer Sam and Detective Laura watched from a distance as she helped a young woman speak during a testimony prep. Rex lay at her feet, head on his paws, eyes half closed, utterly at peace. Grace joined them, smiling faintly. Looks like he found his new beat. Sam nodded. And so did she. The afternoon drifted into evening, the thin rain returning just before sunset. Austin shimmered silver under it, the summer heat finally giving way to softness. Emily walked out into the drizzle with Rex trotting beside her, his fur speckled with droplets. She opened her red umbrella, tilting it so the dog could share the shade. Come on, partner, she whispered. Let's go home. Rex's tail wagged once, slow and content, as thunder rolled faintly beyond the hills, a closing note to the storm that had followed them both, too long. And for the first time in months, Emily felt something she had forgotten the shape of. Peace. When the thunder faded and Austin's streets glistened under that gentle summer rain, something larger than justice had taken place. It wasn't just about a verdict or a man in a red cap. It was about grace, about how healing sometimes arrives not as a miracle of thunder and fire, but as a quiet whisper in the heart. Maybe it wasn't coincidence that Rex found the way out of the flames, or that Emily's voice returned in the very place where silence had once ruled her life. Maybe it was something greater, something divine. There are moments in life when we can't see the path ahead, when fear blinds us and grief deafens us. But even then, God works quietly through courage, loyalty, and love, sometimes in the shape of a faithful dog who refuses to leave your side, sometimes through the hands of strangers who remind you that you're not alone. The Lord doesn't always part seas or send lightning. Sometimes He sends a heartbeat beside yours to carry you through the storm. So if you've ever felt broken, if your nights have ever been too long or too heavy, remember Emily and Rex. Remember that no matter how deep the silence or how fierce the fire, there is always a way home. And perhaps tonight, that way begins with a small prayer of thanks. May God bless you, protect your home, and fill your heart with courage and peace. If this story touched your soul, help it reach others who need hope. Share this video, leave a comment about your own miracle or the moment you felt God's hand in your life, and subscribe so you won't miss the next tale of faith, love, and redemption. Because somewhere out there, another lost voice is waiting for its own miracle, and maybe you'll be the one who helps them find it.